In the room, sunlight streamed in through the thin, woven blinds, casting long beams of light. Alex slowly opened his eyes, his senses still jumbled from sleep. He felt a strange warmth beside him, a softness that wasn't like his blanket or anything he usually found in bed. His vision adjusted to the dim light following the gentle movement of someone's back. To his surprise, he saw his alien roommate, Lyra, whose silvery blue skin peeked through strands of silver-white hair, shimmering faintly in the light. Leaning in close enough to feel her soft breaths on his arm, he was startled awake by a rush of emotions. Lyra, who usually kept her distance, even when they were in their tiny apartment together, was lying beside him, which made his heart race and his thoughts race. He swallowed, trying to figure out what to do next, all the while hoping not to disturb her. With a careful glance, Alex studied Lyra more closely. Her posture appeared relaxed, even vulnerable. Her appearance changed in a way he hadn't noticed before. Usually she exuded an air of unwavering poise and an otherworldly elegance that made her appear untouchable. However, in the delicate light of dawn, her features seemed touched by an innocence he hadn't anticipated. He couldn't help but study her face, taking note of her high cheekbones, slightly parted lips, and delicate, shimmering skin. Her breathing was steady and rhythmic, drawing him in and making him almost reluctant to wake her up. Alex couldn't tear his eyes away from her, captivated by the gentle rise and fall of her body language. He couldn't help but notice the tranquility in her expression as she breathed deeply into his bed. He was unsure of her motivations for being there, but her presence was irresistible, drawing him nearer. In the gentle morning light, he could make out the subtle radiance of her skin, a pale sheen that appeared almost otherworldly. He'd noticed this quality before, but it had always been in passing during their short, friendly breakfast chats or when they said goodbye from across the room. Little did he imagine that he'd actually see her. Being in such close proximity allowed me to hear her breath, and my eyelashes fluttered as she opened her eyes. A haze lingered in her gaze, as if she were also caught in the transition between sleep and wakefulness. Her eyes, which were a deep shade of violet, almost shone against her pale skin as they focused on him. Her expression changed from calm to surprise as she registered her surroundings. A faint but noticeable blush tinted her cheeks, and her voice, which was soft, sounded Alex. Cautious, as if she were terrified of breaking the fragile silence between them, she whispered a good morning in response. He was sensitive to her initial unease and wanted to avoid startling her, so she looked down at him when she realized how close they were. She didn't move, but she did glance back at him, her expression unreadable. Her eyes lingered on his face as if seeking reassurance. "I didn't mean to," she said, her voice trailing off. Despite their friendly and casual relationship, he could feel an unspoken connection between them. It was there in the lingering glances they shared, and the way their hands occasionally brushed as they passed each other in public. Her confession was quiet and barely audible, but it stirred something within him. Her eyes darted away, and her hand brushed over the edge of his blanket, almost absently, as if trying to gather her thoughts. "I was drawn to you." In the quiet hallway where they seldom spoke, he whispered, "You don't have to apologize." His heart was racing as he responded to her confession. He wanted to comfort her by touching her shoulder, but he refrained because he was afraid she would be surprised by his reaction. As she drew nearer, her gaze remained fixed, and she asked, "Alex, do you ever think about the ways we're different?" Her hand instinctively reached out to trace a line along his forearm, and she felt the familiar sensation. Her skin was cooler than his, and its faintly silky texture sent shivers down his arm as her fingers brushed against his. He nodded, his breath caught in his throat at the sensation of her touch. His voice was barely audible, but every word was charged with the realization that they were venturing into uncharted territory. She tilted her head toward him, her expression a mix of curiosity and something else entirely. He couldn't quite make sense of humans. They appear to experience connections differently than my kind, according to what he had read. As Alex felt a sudden urge to lean into her touch, he couldn't help but ask, "What changed?" Her eyes met his, reflecting the vulnerability and uncertainty she rarely showed, and she said, "Alex, being close to you, I feel things I can't explain." Her fingers continued to trace light patterns along his arm, and her words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Subtle but brimming with unspoken intensity, I was taken aback by their unexpected silence. The weight of their closeness filled the air, and they were both acutely aware of the tension that was building between them. Alex's senses were on high alert, his mind racing as he felt her touch, her closeness, and the subtle allure in her eyes. The once unbreakable barrier between them seemed to be fading, leaving only the undeniable pull of their mutual curiosity and connection. He couldn't resist the urge to give in to their mutual attraction. Alex reached out and delicately cupped her face, his fingers caressing her cheek and the softness of her skin. She closed her eyes for a moment, her breath coming out softly as a result of the touch. His voice was barely above a whisper, and he was filled with a mix of wonder and restraint as he whispered. When she opened her eyes, he saw a vulnerability in them, a silent invitation, an unspoken question. He hesitated to ask, but before he could second-guess himself, drew closer until their lips were just a breath apart. She closed the eyes and he resumed his gentle caress. As they drew nearer, her lips met his in a kiss that was at once tentative and brimming with the intensity of her unspoken emotions. Her touch was soft and exploratory, as if she were attempting to decipher the nature of human connection through this intimate gesture. In return, Alex allowed himself to be embraced by her, relishing in the warm embrace, the tenderness of her lips, and the strangely enticing taste of her time together. As their connection intensified, the kiss became bolder and more self-assured. As they drew nearer, her arms encircled him, drawing him closer. He could feel her heartbeat, a steady rhythm that matched his own. In that instant, all boundaries and differences faded, leaving only the shared intimacy of their embrace. The remainder of the morning was a haze of careful looks and smiles, the unsaid energy between them lingering like a warm, invisible thread. Neither of them wanted to interrupt the other's breakfast, which struck them as respectful. There was a noticeable change in their relationship. The ordinary kitchen, with its soft clinks of dishes and the warmth of the sunshine streaming through the curtains, added an otherworldly quality to their connection. Alex glanced over at Lyra, who was sipping her tea, and noticed that her violet eyes were bright and thoughtful as she seemed to study her environment. He had become accustomed to her inquisitiveness about human habits and her rare inquiries about his world, but today she seemed to be more interested in other things. His gaze lingered on Lyra as she placed her cup down, seemingly lost in contemplation. He hesitated softly, as if he were trying to convey some unspoken promise. The silence between them was soothing, but charged like a delicate truce, precariously balanced on the brink of words unsaid. Alex couldn't help but wonder if she shared his intense emotions. He had never been here before, feeling a mix of excitement and uncertainty. "Last night when you entered my room, did something draw you there?" Lyra looked up at him, her gaze fixed on his. A hint of vulnerability crossed her face as she drew in breath and answered, "Yes, I felt drawn to you, Alex. It's something I don't fully understand, but I felt it growing over the past few weeks. There's a warmth and a pull that I feel when I'm near you." Her normally calm expression turned delicate, and last night she couldn't help but give in to her feelings. With that, she went on to leave. With his heart racing and questions racing through his mind, Alex reached out and covered her hand with his. She smiled softly, and her hand turned to interlace her fingers with his. The sensation was small, but electrifying, and it grounded him in the moment. She looked down at their joined hands as if contemplating the sensations, her gaze filled with a quiet wonder at our planet. She began softly, "I don't have to explain, I think I feel it too. We don't connect in this way. Our bonds are logical and prearranged, leaving little room for emotions or impulses." Her voice was wistful as she asked, "What am I feeling with you? It's new and unpredictable." She met his gaze, her eyes shining with her intense emotions, and he nodded understanding. "Perhaps we can relate." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, feeling a mutual understanding. Alex was taken aback by her request, but he couldn't deny the thrill it sparked in him. The idea of showing her his world and introducing her to the intricacies of human connection filled him with a sense of fulfillment. She finally broke the silence, her voice hesitant but full of curiosity. "Would you share more of your world with me?" She wanted to know what makes humans so different and magnetic. He had been so preoccupied with his own life that he hadn't given much consideration to the simple things that made him human. Lyra, with her quiet fascination, appeared to crave understanding. He responded with a smile, asking, "Where would you like to start?" A spark of excitement flickered in her eyes as she tilted her head thoughtfully. I've read about dances. Humans use dance as a way to express closeness, right? He was surprised by her question, but he could see her curiosity. He responded smiling, explaining that dance is a way to express closeness. At her request, Alex felt his pulse quicken. He stood up from his chair and extended his hand to her. She hesitated for a moment before placing her hand in his, her fingers cool and delicate against his warm skin. Her eyes shone with a mixture of excitement and nervousness, as though she were about to step into a new dynamic. They stepped into a whole new world, one that had never been explored before. Alex placed one hand on Lyra's waist and the other on her hand. Their touch was light and gentle, but he could feel an undeniable energy between them, a subtle spark that seemed to ignite with every passing second. With the room filled with the soft murmur of music, he began to guide her through a slow, swaying rhythm. And at first, Lyra was clumsy, her steps unsure as she attempted to follow. As they danced, she seemed to let go her body, harmonizing with his in an unspoken harmony. With each step, they drew closer, the tension in the air growing heavier. Alex became hyper-aware of every detail, savoring her warmth against him and the subtle aroma of something exotic. Her eyes met his with a mix of intrigue and intensity, and he could sense her heartbeat racing through their embrace. A reminder that despite their shared origins, as their dance drew to a close, their movements became more deliberate and intimate. He gently brushed a strand of her silvery hair away from her face, his thumb resting on her cheek. Her eyes grew softer, revealing a hint of vulnerability. She looked up at him, Alex, and whispered, her voice trembling. What is this feeling? This desire to be close, to feel everything so intensely? He asked, his breath caught at her question. The sincerity in her eyes pierced through her words, as he spoke, she looked into his eyes, her expression softening as she took in his words. The sensation was both beautiful and terrifying. She reached up and rested her hand on his cheek, her touch so light it sent shivers down his spine. In that instant, any doubts he had whirred away by the connection they shared. The uncertainty had dissipated, leaving only the certainty of his feelings for her. He leaned in for a gentle kiss, exploring with each movement a gentleness that seemed to reflect the unspoken promises they had made to each other. Lyra returned the gesture, drawing closer with her arms around his neck. Their touch was delicate, but there was an underlying passion and longing that she struggled to contain. As their kiss deepened, their bodies moved in perfect harmony, a silent ballet of emotions. Their connection was so profound that words failed to capture it. As they stood alone, their breaths blended with the stillness, their foreheads touching, and the room reverberated with the weight of their shared experience. Alex could see the awe in Lyra's eyes as well as the unspoken questions that remained unanswered. He chose not to elaborate, for they were now bound in a way that went beyond mere words. In the stillness of the living room, he gently squeezed her hand, his heart brimming with emotion. Lyra, I am grateful that you have allowed me to share this part of your world with you. As they stood there, their bond deepened, and Alex felt a calm assurance that they would face whatever challenges came their way. The path they had started was only just beginning, and with each step they were drawing closer, and each moment was more meaningful than the last. The days that followed were shrouded in a soft mist, but they made it through. Alex and Lyra continued their quiet routines, but with each interaction and touch, their connection grew stronger. They would spend their evenings sitting by the fireplace, laughing and sharing stories. Lyra would share bits of her alien culture and customs, and Alex would tell tales of human quirks and traditions. Lyra would laugh with an open, unabashed joy, while Alex would tell tales of human traditions that made her laugh with an unabashed joy. But beneath the quiet bliss of their growing closeness, a subtle tension was present. Sat close together on the couch one evening, Alex couldn't help but notice Lyra's thoughtful gaze. She seemed lost in thought, staring out the window at the distant starlight reflecting in her eyes. His expression was a mix of curiosity and something else he couldn't quite put his finger on. Leaning forward, he reached out to delicately tuck a strand of Lyra's silvery hair behind her ear. He whispered to her, "You seem far away tonight. Is everything all right?" Lyra blinked as he spoke. Alex, her voice gentle but steady, spoke, "I have something important to share with you. I've been avoiding talking about it because I didn't know how to explain it, and I didn't want to change what we have. She paused, taking a breath before continuing, but she finally couldn't keep it to herself any longer. His heart was pounding as he held her hand, feeling the slight tremor in her fingers. Whatever it is he could tell her assuaged her fears in his comforting voice, assuring her that they would be in this together. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as if to collect her thoughts. On my planet, there is a season when our emotions and instincts become heightened. It's a rare occurrence happening, maybe only once or twice in our lives. When it does, she paused, her gaze falling to their joined hands. This is called the call, and it's a powerful pull to find a connection to bond with someone deeply. She glanced up at her uncertainty, and I believe that's what brought her here. Me to you, Alex. This call is what brought me to Earth. I didn't fully comprehend why at the time, but now I see it was something much deeper. As Alex listened to Lyra, his heart raced and hurt from the weight of her confession and the significance of her sharing this part of herself. If you feel this call with me, it's not just a feeling, it's a choice, an instinctual desire to form a bond. That this bond she described wasn't a transient connection or passing infatuation. Rather, it was something much deeper, a commitment that went beyond their differences and the physical distance between their worlds. Her eyes became increasingly intense as she searched his face for a response, but he swallowed hard as he processed her words. Alex, I don't want you to feel pressured by my feelings. I need to know if Alex gazed into her eyes, experiencing the depth of her vulnerability and sincerity. In that instant, he felt a certainty that surprised even him. He wanted this bond not just for a moment, but in a profound and destined way. He reached out and placed a gentle hand on her cheek, his thumb tracing a gentle line along her jaw. Lyra, he murmured, his voice steady. He nodded, his heart racing with a quiet, unwavering conviction. Yes, I want this, Lyra. For a moment they remained like that. I don't fully understand it, but it doesn't matter. I know how I feel about you, and it's unlike anything I've ever felt. Her eyes sparkled with a blend of relief and joy, and a radiant smile spread across her face. She leaned into him, touching his hand with hers. Immersed in the serene intensity of their shared understanding, Lyra's expression changed to one of vulnerability and tenderness. There's something you should know, she whispered, her voice carrying an undercurrent of uncertainty. The bond isn't just emotional, it's physical, and it's irreversible. Despite the weight of her words, he felt a sense of calm acceptance as he gently touched her face, his thumb lightly brushing across her cheek. I understand, Lyra. Whatever this bond entails, I'm here for it, he assured her. Lyra took a deep breath, her hand gently resting on his chest as she felt his heartbeat. Her touch was delicate and reverent, as if she were savoring every sensation. Alex, she murmured, her voice soft yet intense. This is different for me, too. I've never felt this kind of closeness. This desire is overwhelming, but in the best way. She hesitated, her cheeks flushing. But if we must be open and vulnerable in order to fully embrace and complete the bond, he nodded, his heart racing. Lyra, I trust you. Whatever this bond requires, I am ready to embrace it. Her lips parted into a gentle smile, and her eyes sparkled with thankfulness and anticipation. Gradually, she reached for his hand and guided it to her heart. The gentle rhythm beneath her skin pulsed and sank with his, creating a shared rhythm that seemed to echo the bond they were creating. It was as if the universe itself was. As they stood there, their hearts racing, a silent thread connected them, drawing them closer with each passing second. Lyra whispered, Alex, let us share everything. Lyra's hands moved fluidly and instinctively, drawing him closer, and her body pressed against his in a way that felt both strange and completely natural. Alex embraced her, feeling the warmth radiate from her, and the steady reassurance that this was the beginning of a beautiful, passionate love story. Lyra's voice broke the silence, her words gentle but brimming with a quiet strength. With this bond we become one, and Alex could feel the weight of her emotions and the depth of her desire for connection. He responded with his own silent vow, whispered between their hearts as they remained locked in a silent embrace. He could feel their combined commitment. A solemn vow resounded between them as Alex planted a tender kiss on Lyra's forehead and whispered, I am yours and you are mine. Nothing can ever separate us. For an eternity, they remained locked in that silent promise, a moment they didn't want to end. The world outside seemed to melt away, leaving behind nothing but the comfort of their bond, the power of their connection, and the surety that they were no longer alone. In the days that followed, Alex and Lyra's lives seemed to take on a new rhythm. With each glance, they seemed to share a quiet understanding, which had replaced the uncertain and tentative feelings they had experienced before. The bond they had formed was more than just a commitment. It was a sense of belonging and the merging of two souls whose lives were now intertwined. No matter what came their way, they would face it together, bound by a love that went beyond the limits of their worlds. Their paths intertwined as they cherished time in Alex's tranquil cabin. Lyra gained a fresh perspective on Earth. She marveled at the natural beauty of Alex's world, from the morning sunlight filtering through the trees to the infectious laughter that escaped her as she sampled Al's favorite dishes. The quiet solace of their shared evenings by the fire brought a new sense of home, and Lyra couldn't help but wonder if there was a part of herself that, on a cold evening with the fire crackling gently and the scent of pine filling the air, Lyra turned to Alex, her gaze steady, yet filled with a quiet vulnerability. She whispered to him, her fingers intertwined with his. "Alex, there's something else I need." She had to reconcile with not telling him the whole truth about the call, but the bond they had formed was indeed permanent. However, there was one last test that would determine whether she could truly remain by his side. It was a test of her own nature, one that only he could help her overcome. "I have something important to share with you that I've been trying to figure out," he said, his voice barely audible, as he gently squeezed Lyra's hand and whispered, "No matter what it is, I'm here for you. You can tell me." Lyra took a deep breath, and her words were barely above a whisper. "The call isn't just about connection. It's about survival. Our people bond deeply, and with that bond comes an instinct to protect and defend. But if that bond is broken, it could be too much for us to bear, and it could harm or destroy us." Alex's face softened as he spoke to Lyra. "I would..." She nodded, a subtle smile slipping over her lips. "I understand, and that's why I rely on you. The last phase of our bond is a test of trust, where I must give in and let your strength lead the way. It's in our nature, and it's what keeps us connected, but it's also something I'm scared of." He locked eyes with her, his gaze unwavering. "Lyra, I'm here for you through whatever this trial brings. I trust you entirely." Her expression softened, and she leaning in close, Lyra brushed her fingers along Alex's jawline and whispered, "Alex, I need you to close your eyes and just feel trust, the bond we share, and know that nothing can break it." Alex closed his eyes and breathed deeply, and they stood in a quiet embrace. Lyra guided Alex outside, leading him to a small clearing, surrounded by towering pines where the moon hung low in the sky, casting a gentle glow. As he inhaled deeply from the night air, he sensed a subtle warmth emanating from Lyra, a gentle pull that seemed to connect their souls. Fixating on this connection, he felt an unsettling sensation, as if his own heartbeat were being reflected by Lyra. The sensation intensified, and he came to understand that it was her energy merging with his. In that instant, he could feel the depth of her vulnerability and the fear she endured. He whispered softly, "I feel you, and I won't let go." Lyra felt a surge of strength and a sense of calm reassurance, and she knew that their bond was complete. Her burdens would no longer be carried alone, no matter what trials they faced. Their lives were intertwined, and each heartbeat echoed in the stillness of the night. They stood there together, enveloped in a silence that Lyra looked up at Alex with a warm and contented expression, and she whispered, a soft smile across her lips, "Thank you for being my home." They returned to the cabin, hand in hand, each step a silent vow of the journey they had taken together. The trial had been a test of trust and commitment, but they had both emerged stronger, bound by something deeper than love. Their connection bridged their worlds. As they entered, the world seemed both smaller and infinitely vaster. Their future together, like the stars above, stretched out before them. In the stillness of the night, they sat by the fire, their hands interlaced, enjoying the warmth of their bond and the assurance that they were no longer alone. Their love, which had been tested and proven, would now propel them forward one heartbeat at a time as they faced the world together.